And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking the Dutch Grand Prix preview, but almost more importantly, in a way, we're talking F1 is finally back after that summer break, and it's going to be quite exciting. We potentially have at least a Constructors' Championship on hand, and we're going into the Dutch Grand Prix not really knowing who is going to be fastest, but what we do know is it's going to be a sea of orange. And I'm not saying McLaren fans, absolutely not, because it's a very much Red Bull. Max Verstappen is the only man I think that most of them are going to care about, and why not? It is essentially his home Grand Prix, so we can't whine about that. But the atmosphere also, even for your non-Max Verstappen fans, is going to be absolutely electric, as it is always. A lot of people that have visited it, a lot of people I've spoken to that has visited the Dutch Grand Prix they just say absolutely wonderful things about it, and why not? But first of all, let's get into when that race actually is. And what you find here are track times. These are all the track times, as in the local times, with qualifying starting at 3 o'clock local time, and the race on the Saturday, the 24th of August, and the race starting at 3 o'clock local time on Sunday, the 25th of August. But if we then go to UK time, we've got practice 1 at 11:30 on the Friday the 23rd starts, practice 2 at 3 o'clock or 1500 on the 23rd again later on. The next day, practice 3 in the morning at 10:30 and qualifying at 1400 or 2 o'clock, with the race again the next day on the 25th on the Sunday, again starting at 2 o'clock. Let's have a look at the Drivers' Championship, and here we go. Surprise, surprise, not much has changed. There's been no race, but surprise, surprise, Max Verstappen still leads the Drivers' Championship by a long way, thanks to Lando Norris himself. You imagine if Lando Norris had won all those races, how close it would be. But Max is on 277, Lando on 199, Leclerc not too far on third on 177, but Leclerc's going to have to be looking over his shoulder because it's Piastri of the Oscar on 167, with Carlos Sainz on 162. And then it is a multiple Grand Prix winner now, thanks in part to George Russell disqualification. Lewis Hamilton on 150, Perez on 131, and poor George Russell with that win taken away on 116. Aston Martin, 9th and 10th, 46 for Alonso points, 9th. Points for Stroll, 24. I think that's better pro rata than last year in terms of the difference between the two, but still in 10th. The 9th and 10th, Alonso and Stroll. So 11th to 20th, we got Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Behrman still in 14th, doing better in F1 than he's been doing in Formula 2. Gasly in 15th, and we got Magnussen, Ocon, Albon, Zhou, Sargent, and Bottas rounding out your top 21 basically, thanks to Oliver Behrman. The Constructors is slightly different. If we scroll up, here are the Constructors' Championships. Red Bull on 408, good, but not as good as last year. But it's McLaren Mercedes on 366 that are very much the team on form, even if the Belgian Grand Prix didn't really show you, but they are the team on form. Red Bull are looking over their shoulders and I think sweating slightly. All McLaren need is a 1-2 with a non-Red Bull finish, and they're going to be right there. And people are predicting that McLaren may well now be favourites for the Constructors, despite a moderate, I don't want to say comfortable lead for Red Bull, but it's Ferrari not a million miles away from Red Bull and McLaren on 345. And then you have to go in the 200s on 266 for Mercedes in 4th. Mercedes pretty much come out and said their aim is to finish 3rd, beating Ferrari. Aston Martin on 73. I don't think they're going to be touched either way, because it's RB behind them on 34, Haas on 27th. How do they get that many points? Punching above their weight. They remind me of the old Force India. Alpine 8th. Hang your head in shame, Alpine. And Williams in 9th with 4 points. I don't want to say hang your head in shame, Williams. James Vowles at the beginning of the year came out and said, he kind of intimated, we're going to have a worse year than last year. And they had done. The reason why? Well, last year they focused, as they had done the previous years, on tracks they knew their car was designed around. Fast tracks like Monza, for example. This year they want an all-round better car, so their high level of scoring points has been taken down with a view of being better at all the tracks. And I think that may well come to fruition in 2025 and beyond. So it is kind of a sacrifice, but with a purpose for James Vowles and friends. But let's now get into the track itself, shall we? So let's have a quick look at the track. If you just bear with me, the track map, which I do have somewhere. Ta-da! And let's have a look at the onboard. Let's just take a deep breath, shall we? So there we go. So we're coming now into the first corner, and this is where most of the passing is going to be done. I can't even get the turn names right, but you're going to have really big braking here. As I'm going to pause it, what I am going to do is just turn the camera off. You are going to be able to hear me because, as I've actually said, you can my big head. You can hardly see the circuit. So yeah, I got a big head. So here we go. So now, going bang tidy into the first corner, and this is the big braking mode, the end of the DRS zone. This is where a lot of the passes are. So it's quite slippy, especially when you're low on time coming out here. Not quite flat here, but here it's almost like the an American style track. Lots and lots of banking. You do see cars alongside each other here. Now here it's very much one at a time. Although you do sometimes get cars side by side, but passing anywhere around here is going to be absolutely super risky, as we're now in the middle of the circuit, pretty much sector 2, and you're lining up. What you're essentially going to be doing here now is lining up for the next DRS, and where we once again see a few passes, but what I see more going into turn 1. But here is the next DRS and braking into a chicane. Many people do outbrake themselves here. It's very easy to outbrake yourself, but here we go. And then once again, the banking. It's really lovely to follow cars through it as we're now coming up to what's essentially turn 13 and 14, the last couple of corners, nice and banked, so which means the aerodynamics are going to work better if you're following the car. Hit that DRS button and go some. Yeah, and that's essentially a lovely lap around the circuit of Zandvoort, which is a beauty. Let's be fair, it's such a lovely circuit. It's situated right next to the seaside. It's brilliant. I love it. I'm sure you do too. So let's get then a few track facts, shall we? I mean, I don't really know about this track that much. Do you know about this track that much? Let's have a look at a few facts of the Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit, shall we? So, the Dutch Grand Prix returned to the calendar in 2021. The track length is 4.529 kilometres. The race length is 306.587. In terms of laps, we're looking at 72, 14 turns. First opened in 1948, first visited in 1952. It's held 33 races so far. Track record, a 108 by Max Verstappen, but the lap record still held by Lewis Hamilton. There have been 33 previous races. Now, what's interesting is it's Jim Clark that holds the most Dutch Grand Prix wins with 4, but that is a record that Max Verstappen can equal. Very much so. So Ferrari, though, have won more Dutch Grand Prix than any other team. They've got 8 wins at the circuit. But Clark's streak of wins between 63 and 65, and Verstappen's currently 3 winning streak, makes Lotus and Red Bull the only teams that have taken 3 consecutive wins at Zandvoort. There are 11 occasions on which a team has finished 1-2. At the Dutch Grand Prix. Most recently, McLaren, although that was in 1984 and 85. However, let's be honest, who is going to bet against the mighty orange McLaren cars, the other orange army, this year? It may well be possible for an Oscar Piastri Lando Norris to absolutely ruin local fans. 2 drivers have won the Dutch Grand Prix by over a lap. Yep, the largest winning margin is 1 lap, with both Jim Clark and Australia's own Jack Brabham winning by over a lap in 1963 and 1966, respectively. 2 drivers share the record for the most Dutch Grand Prix podiums. It's Niki Lauda, rest in peace, Niki, absolutely, and also obviously rest in peace, Jim Clark. They have the most podiums, which is 6 each. Max Verstappen is the only current driver to take multiple podiums at Zandvoort, while Lewis Hamilton, Bottas, Russell, Leclerc, Alonso and Pierre Gasly have also finished on the Dutch Grand Prix podium for the last few seasons. British drivers have double the amount of podiums than any other nationality here, with 28, and that's compared to France's 13. Ocon helping that, I think, last year. Ferrari are the team with the most podium finishes here. So there we go. Arno and Verstappen also share the record for most Dutch Grand Prix poles. That's Rene Arnoux and Max Verstappen. They have 3 apiece. Max Verstappen, once again, really, really fast. But Max is the only driver on the grid who started from pole for the Dutch Grand Prix. I think the most at 21, 22 and 23. He's the only driver of the current grid, that has started on that pole position. So just a few little facts for you for the Dutch Grand Prix. But let's now get into driver by drivers, shall we? And let's start with Kevin Magnussen, because I'm not going to change it. Kevin has even admitted himself that he's probably gone from Formula One come next year. Could he be the secret guy that's going to be rallying? I don't know. So going onwards now Cass have, made it official. He's kind of driving for himself. No team orders, I don't think, because Hulkenberg's going as well. So it's going to be really interesting now to see a Kevin Magnussen absolutely unleashed. He may well, maybe not the Dutch Grand Prix, but I do think we could see a surprise from him between now and the end of the year. So Nico Hulkenberg, the man that is going to Audi, is he going to regret that decision with all the question marks currently around stake? Maybe, but if that ends up being handy around here, it's going to be Quick Nick. Let's be honest, Quick Nico, that is going to make the most of it. If it is a crazy race, and weather permitting, it is near the sea, so weather can change a lot quicker than a lot of other places. Kind of like when you get up there, your Belgiums and your Nürburgrings, your Spas and your Nürburgring, the weather, when you're near the sea, it almost has its own climate. And I do feel that Nico Hulkenberg could maybe well spell a surprise. So this man, Zhao Guanyu, he's under pressure, isn't he? I mean, let's be honest. Like Bottas, he scored no points, but he's actually beating Bottas in the championship, I think, because he's finished higher ahead, albeit no points. Although I'd quite gladly say Bottas has very much been the better of the two. So he really needs a good weekend. Many think he's not going to have a race here next year, but Bottas, I think there's a bit of hope. A lot of people, unless Audi are going to take a risk on a brand new person, I can't help but feel very much Valtteri Bottas is the man that Audi, at least for the next year, a steady hand. So going into the Belgian Grand Prix and coming out, all these rumours about Daniel Ricciardo taking Sergio Perez's place. Hasn't happened, but this is where he broke his hand, unfortunately, last year. So he's going to want some kind of revenge against the circuit. So fingers crossed, hopefully he can score some points. He himself needs to be better than Tsunoda. I mean, absolute minimum, I think, for Daniel Ricciardo. And let's talk about Yuki Tsunoda, shall we? He also needs to beat Daniel Ricciardo. A lot of people believe, if not before the end of the year, at the end of the year, going into 2025, that Red Bull seat will be up. Many people have almost given up on Perez, unlike Red Bull itself, which you've got to commend them for, because they are risking their Constructors' Championship. So many people think it's all about Daniel Ricciardo, but this is the guy that's currently beating him this year and outscored him this year and has done better. Although Daniel Ricciardo, you could make an argument, is on better form. Now, talking about form, arguably one of the slowest drivers on the grid. One reason, because he's in a Williams, he just can't get on with it at the moment, isn't it? But we know Logan Sargent, he does have buckets of talent. Maybe not, he just doesn't fit for an F1 car. Having said that, when we look at the British Grand Prix and other races, he has improved a fair bit. Once again, a crazy race. Points are not impossible. But I don't know what's happened to her. I have no idea what's happened to Alex Albon there. There you go. Put you back in your place. I have no idea whether Williams could score points here. I think there's always a chance, because it's quite an interesting race sometimes. But if you were to pick a Williams guy, it's more likely going to be Alex Albon. All things being equal, but fair play. I think it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be quite hard to predict who could be best of the rest behind the big four, even the big five. Could it be Alpine? I mean, they did score a podium. If it wasn't Ocon, sorry, it was Gasly, wasn't it, for France, not Ocon last year. But once again, Ocon now is comfortable in the knowledge that he has that Haas seat. So how is he going to appear against this man here, Pierre Gasly? Pierre Gasly, he would probably come in with oodles of confidence. Bear in mind, he got that podium last year. Alpine, I think, will be looking for, the back end of the points. And I think anything else, potentially, they'll be leaving disappointed. But talking about points, can Lance Stroll get points? Maybe. But I think the bigger question is, what has happened to Fernando Alonso since he signed? We keep on saying this all the time. Fernando Alonso, do something. Do something, Fernando. And I think points an absolute minimum for Fernando here. Now we are getting into the big wigs. We're getting into the big four with Oscar Piastri. I think potentially everyone here, maybe apart from the two Ferrari guys, could go in, and Perez, could go in as a potential favourite. This track is quite turny and twisty, kind of like a Hungary with, with the turns and twists. McLaren went very well there, and so did Oscar Piastri, didn't he? Beating Lando Norris. So I do feel that both of the McLarens are going to go really... What's happened to Lando Norris? Both of the McLarens, excuse me, are going to do really well. Which one of them, I don't know. But I can't help but feel, coming into this last... Well, I don't want to say second half, because there's 10 races left, but yeah, okay. Second half of the season, after the summer break, I can't help but feel it's Lando Norris that needs to do the, hello, I'm here, I am still the best. And he's under pressure. And he makes lots of mistakes. This needs to be a mistake-free 10 races. It really, really does. So Carlos Sainz, off to Williams, eh? These last 10 races could be, but hopefully not, because I really like Williams, but it could be his last chance to ever win a race. I mean, think about that. I think if Ferrari can sort that car out, they've railed back on their current... They've kind of like, railed back on their current upgrades because it was causing the car to bounce, which is not good. And I think Carlos Sainz is going to go absolutely all out towards the end of the year. Could he win Zandvoort? I don't think so, but tiny bit of luck springs his way. They get the sweet setup on the Ferrari. I think fighting for the podium is not impossible. And so for this guy, Charles Leclerc. So it's going to be a really interesting end of the year between him and Charles. So going into Zandvoort, both men need to beat the other person. Charles Leclerc needs to do it for his confidence because, let's be fair, Lewis Hamilton's coming next year, who may pose more of a challenge than Carlos Sainz. He needs to do really well, but Carlos Sainz has got a thing to prove as well. He wants to prove, Ferrari, you did me dirty. You shouldn't have got rid of me. But Williams, look at the talent you've got. And I think either of them could be outside contenders for the podium. So George Russell, a man that should have won the Belgian Grand Prix. He did nothing wrong. It was a perfect race. He bamboozled the 7-time world champion, Lewis Hamilton, to the point where Hamilton was uncharacteristically cross, I think. I think it was bad play, really. Bad form almost for Lewis Hamilton. Not quite at Max Verstappen levels of throwing your toys out the pram, but still. But George Russell, he's got a point to prove now. He needs to go there, get on the front, maybe even get pole and go, see you later, guys. I'm gonna win. Will he? Well, I think Max Verstappen's going to have something to say about that. But there you go. But arguably one of the on-form people making the most, I think, like George Russell, out of his Mercedes is Lewis Hamilton. They are bringing the upgrades to this race that failed so epically in Belgium before their car came good. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Albeit the rain, I think, stopped a bit of that with them understanding it. I just hope they've sorted their upgrades out and they've got it right. I think the biggest man under pressure is this guy here coming into the race, is Sergio Perez. Simply because all eyes are going to be on him. Many people think you should not be here anymore, maybe, and he has a point to prove. Anything but, I think if Max Verstappen wins and is comfortable winning, when I say comfortable, like wins 6-7 seconds even, people are going to be expecting Perez probably to be on the podium, at least in the top 4, absolute minimum. He cannot risk being 8th, which is kind of best of the rest, behind those big teams. If he is, those questions are going to be asked again and again and again for both Sergio Perez and Red Bull, to the point where it's getting kind of boring. So last but not least, the big home hero coming home after, let's be fair, we did our one-word reviews on Verstappen and we said the word vulnerable for Max. And I think that's exactly what he is going into the Dutch Grand Prix weekend. However, he knows this track really well. He's got 3 poles. He has got 3 wins. I mean, as good as Lewis Hamilton is at Silverstone, Max Verstappen is just that at Zandvoort in Holland. at his home race. The fans are going to give him more impetus. Qualifying is going to be interesting. Looking at the race ones, looking at qualifying, I think Verstappen just about goes in as favourite. But when I say just about, you can put a cigarette paper's, worth of width between him being favourite and I think, both McLaren and Mercedes drivers right behind him. And that's something we're definitely going to learn in free practice 1. So that pretty much does it for our Dutch Grand Prix preview. If you liked what you saw, please give us a subscribe. That would make me absolutely really, really happy. Give me loads of smiles. Hit that notification button if you want to see more content about Grand Prix. We do daily, pretty much, F1 videos. We do touring car. We do rally videos. We'll have our touring car preview tomorrow. And that's going, touring cars going into the Donington. And I think they're using the longer track this time as well. And we do the odd bit of gaming. We've currently got a Fernando Alonso 2001 on the PlayStation 1 running as well. Thank you very much, and we'll speak to you soon.